We're recording. We're live. We're not really live. We're recording.
Okay.
But how you been, girl?
I'm good.
Good. That's good. I know that we were talking off camera about our Netflix shows that we're currently watching, but we might as well let the audience know what we're currently binging on. I've been binging on a couple of different shows, documentaries, I like docuseries. I don't know if you like docuseries. Docuseries are pretty cool because it breaks it up for you, like part 1, part 2, part 3. It's not one elongated 2-hour documentary because sometimes you got to get up and move and go to the store, go get food, and you can stop at a certain, point of the docuseries. So that's why I like them a lot. And recently, I saw the Mantu Teo docuseries, the guy that played for the University of Notre Dame for the football team, and how he got essentially catfished by. Yeah, we were just talking about it. Like, how wild is that? Like, not to sound judgmental or anything, but clearly the guy that was doing these things to this poor dude that was just trying to play football is now a transgender, which I don't have anything against the transgender community, but like he clearly had some mental health.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I feel bad for both people because the transgender was trying to fit in and find himself and find what he wanted, which he couldn't have done, and he wouldn't have had the person that he wanted, which was a football player, had he disclosed from the outset that who he was, who he really was.
Right.
And just to begin with, him using the photograph he used of this beautiful girl, someone he pictured as a very beautiful girl, someone who probably himself looked in the mirror and was like, I want to be her. I want to look like her. Yeah. And so he's obviously going through traumas.
Right.
And then this poor kid, the football player, he's very into football, but also has these strong ties with his community, his parents, his religion, that he wanted certain things that this boy transgender was discussing with him, and he just found the perfect match. So it's so sad just the way things happen. It's crazy how naive he was to all the FaceTime calls that were missed or she couldn't answer to. It's like the original
catfish, because this was happening when MySpace and Facebook were kind of like coexisting and stuff like that, and catfishing wasn't a thing back then. But he was literally the original catfish. Like, he got catfished pretty severely, pretty extremely. Like, it was such an extreme, elaborate lie that this guy or transgender had going. Like, he literally, stood by his guns and kept the lie. Because I felt like watching the show, I felt like at any point he could have just been like, hey, you know what?
This is who I am.
I'm sorry. But he kept it going to the point where he involved other people, involved family members, like involved a small community of people that knew Mantu. And I'm just like, that's crazy, because this is a guy that's playing for a prolific university. It's a brand. Who doesn't know the University of Notre Dame? He was literally playing for a brand, and he was on ESPN every other weekend, and it just got publicized as such a negative way, because that's what media does, because they just want to get people tuning in to the drama. And I just felt bad. But if those who, I don't know why we're talking about this, but this is actually going to segue into the conversations that we will have on today's episode. But yeah, it was just sad to see, because like, here's a guy that plays football who that is like a very masculine, manly sport, a brutal, barbaric sport, people may even say. And then he got, catfished by a guy who clearly has an identity issue, a sexual orientation transition that he was experiencing in real time. And again, I don't have anything against those people. I try to love everybody. I mean, that's just like what I do. But like you said, it was just kind of, weird.
It was an elongated lie. That you just kept, how do you keep going?
Yeah.
And you involve so many people, even like his little sister.
Yeah.
You involve so many people that just, when do you stop?
Yeah.
So clearly you have an issue if your one little fib, something that you thought was going to be short-lived, is just, it's going on and on and on, and it's just getting worse. Like, how do you live with yourself?
And even if you thought it was a prank or a joke, that's kind of sick.
I don't think he did, though.
Yeah.
I think he really loved what he was feeling.
Right.
And he just hoped that it would die out, and
it
didn't.
Yeah, and the way he was just dealing with it was such in a I don't know. I felt, me personally as a man, I guess, because I could only give you like a man's perspective. I just felt like he handled it so irresponsibly, because it was very selfish of him. And he didn't care about anybody's feelings but his. And that selfishness to me, because I kind of look at it in a mental aspect, because, you know, I'm such an advocate when it comes to mental health, because I still see a therapist, and I believe you do too. So we kind of want to encourage that to those who are watching, that it's okay to see a therapist. That's one, first and foremost. But I just felt like there was definitely, I mean, from an outsider looking in, there was definitely a mental health like issue somewhere in between everything that was going on. And for those that haven't watched the show, it's called The Girlfriend That Never Existed, and it's on Netflix. It's a pretty good show if you guys are into docuseries, because that's also broken up into different parts. So check it out. And she's watching El Rey.
I'm watching.
Shouts out to El Rey. For the Spanish community, that's Vicente Fernandez. Yes. Yes.
It's like a documentary of his life story, and it's just I think it's a connection between my father and I. Yeah. So I'm obsessed now, and because I have a problem with binging stuff.
I think everybody does. Everybody in America has a problem with binging anything. That's
why I try watching movies instead of docuseries or documentaries, because I will sit there and watch it until I'm done.
Yeah, it'll consume your life for sure. But anyway, to do a formal introduction for those who are watching on YouTube and see this beautiful queen sitting next to me.
Thank you.
We're going to continue the series of talks that I'm having with women. And last episode, I had my friend Vanessa come through, and she shared a lot. She was very transparent, and we got great feedback from you ladies out there that felt empowered and encouraged and enlightened when you heard Vanessa's story. So that's what we're here, just to kind of give you insight, give you perspective. And I wanted to have these series of talks with ladies because I wanted to give you that female perspective. So this series is going to continue with Stacey. I've known Stacey since 2008, 9?
I think it was like 2005.
Was it? 2006, because when I first moved in 2005, I was like a caveman. I didn't want to go out. So 06, you're right, it is 06, because that's when MySpace was like very in its peak, and we met through MySpace.
Javi hit me up on MySpace.
Yes,
me and invited me to go out.
I slid on the DMs, but the reason why I even did that is because you know how MySpace has.
You were making friends.
Yes,
I swear I could just remember the message was, "Hey, I just moved from New York. I'm looking to have friends. Have you been to Envy?"
Yep, and then I saw like we were sharing like common friends, and I saw that you were friends with Sebastian and Veronica, and which is funny because they're married now with 3 kids. So
I don't even think at that time they were together.
They weren't together. They were definitely not, and not in 06. Definitely not in 06. But shouts to them. I love them and their beautiful family. But yeah, that was like the genesis of our friendship. We met through MySpace, and then we met at that club.
Really, probably the same night. So I remember.
We were talking we talked for a couple days.
I don't think so. I think
I'm remembering it differently, Stacey. I don't know.
We spoke for like 2 days, but I remember being in the line with Darlene.
Yeah.
Waiting to get in, and you're like, "Hey, I'm Javi."
Mm-hmm. That is true. Oh, because I knew who was working the door. It was Johnny and his buddy. I forget his other friend's name. But yeah, so that's how our friendship began. and it kind of just never ended. It would take pauses because, life, and we grow up and we start doing different things. You went to law school, so you disappeared for a while. But this is Stacey, guys, and we're just going to have a conversation about a few different topics that I feel a lot of people are engaging on social media. Like a lot of people post like memes about toxic men and memes about getting cheated on, memes about being in the wrong relationship, meeting the wrong person at the wrong time, and vice versa, meeting the right person at the right time and how they learn from that experience. And so I just felt like it was a series of talks that I wanted to have with a female perspective, because it's good to have both a male perspective and a female perspective. So we're going to just cover a little bit of that with that. But before we do, we can just start with, our upbringing, because I think that's a great start as to, our upbringing. We can relate because we're both Colombian. We both come from a Latin Colombian culture, so we can relate on certain things and stuff like that. So how was your upbringing like?
So I actually really believe that your upbringing, especially who your father is in your relationship with your father, plays a huge role on who you end up with in a relationship, or what you seek out of a relationship.
Or the lack of a father.
Yes. So I think I have major daddy issues, even though I had my father in my life.
Yeah.
My entire life. I still do, thank God.
Yeah.
But I do come from a sense of a broken home. My parents were always married, but there was violence, there was drugs, there was just a lot of things within the household as I was growing up. Mm-hmm. So I think the way my dad, the machismo, my dad is actually from Honduras. So even though I think that machismo goes all around, it breaks culture barriers. But I really believe that Mexicans, Central Americans, they're more prone to the machismo, or they're more macho than, for example, Colombian.
Right.
Because and this comparison may be wrong. I just compare it to
your personal experience.
My uncles that I have. My mom has a big family. She has 6 brothers. So I'll compare it to these 6 men and the way they treated their daughters.
Right.
In comparison to the way I was treated. My dad was very rough. He never used pretty words. But now that I get older, I kind of see, I understand my dad's education level. I think he went to kindergarten and then started selling candy on the street. His education level, just the way he was brought up, the way he didn't have a mom or a dad. He'll tell us stories where he slept under tables growing up. So he had this very rough upbringing that I now understand why the tough love. He never grew out of it. He never thought he's like, well, I went through all this shit, then my kids shouldn't have it easy. They should go through it too.
Right, yeah.
So my mom, on the other hand, is this little angel. I used to joke around and I used to say my dad was the devil, my mom was the angel, and they created Lucifer, my brother and I. And my mom is this sweet lady that was, I don't know much of my mom's upbringing. I know that my grandfather was a philanderer. Yeah. And my grandma had stayed raising all of these 9 kids. Yeah. And for a large part, my grandfather was there money-wise, but I think that was only for the older kids. Yeah. For the smaller kids, then things got rough. Then things started changing. Yeah. But my grandma raised these 9 kids on her own, basically. And just my mom's lifestyle, my mom's upbringing was a lot more passive than my father's. But then again, my mom tended to look for these macho, violent men in her life. Right. And I feel that reason why is because she didn't have a father in her life.
So that's all she knew.
I really believe there has to be a psychological reason why we go or we look for these types of men. Yeah. And unfortunately for me, it's like a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. And if you don't break it, you don't get out of it. So your mom ended up with someone like that. She never left him. This is all you know. Yeah. It's your entire life here. It's flight or fight. Mm-hmm. So you learn that, and it becomes normal. It's just, you're no longer afraid of it. You're not trying to get out of it. You don't see a problem with it because you lived it your entire life.
Right. A lot of therapists would call that like a learned behavior, especially when it's when you're exposed to it at a very young age, because your development of the brain is just, you know, kind of rolling out in a way, and so you start learning things, and you at a very young age, you're a very impressionable mind. Mm-hmm. Like you just start picking up on things, you start gravitating to the things that seem the norm. And if you're around violence, and if you're around these certain negative things, and then you equate that to, oh, that's how they love me, so that's my way of you're translating that as love. So you get involved in a abusive environment, and they say they love you at the end of the day, and you're a young impressionable kid, you start learning that, and they groom you to know that that is what love is. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that young kid becomes a young teenager, and then it becomes a young adult, and then you're in your 20s, and you're getting involved with these guys who get a little bit physical or a lot of bit physical, just depending on the situation. And I've seen that firsthand with peers of mine growing up. Like when I was in high school, this girl, I became real close with this girl, and I was first trying to get with this girl, but she friend zoned me. And so I became like a brother figure. She was my sister figure kind of thing. And every relationship that she would cry about was the exact story. Like literally the exact story. She met a guy. It was great for the first 2-3 months, and then he turned on her. And then he cheated on her, and then he gaslit her, and he made her feel inferior, and it was his way or the highway. And everything that she questioned, he would turn it around on her, saying, "Oh, you don't trust me." What? Da, 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 da. And so she just dealt with that. And like you said earlier, it is a cycle, because I saw that firsthand. Because she would hit me up and be like, "It happened again. I don't know why. I don't know why I have these friends, and these guys I always get involved with these guys, and I don't know why, Javi." And I'm looking at her like,
unfortunately,
I know why.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's actually within ourselves. We have to look at ourselves and figure out, what is it that I like, or healing wise, right? You have to heal from certain things. If not, you keep seeking the same type of person.
Absolutely.
So if you don't look at yourself, and you're always pointing the finger like, this guy did this guy did that, figure out, go internally, do an internal search, and figure out why it is that you're seeking that type of man. Mm-hmm. What is it about yourself that you look and you gravitate, and it's a cycle,
right? Because
really it comes from within. You have to heal deep within, and before you move on to something else. You can tell yourself, I want this, I want this, I want that,
right?
But if you don't do the work, and you don't help yourself get to another place to get what it is that you want, you're not going to get it. You're going to continue going after the same type of thing.
And I feel bad for the young for the young people, because they're still learning. When you're 19, 20, 21, you're still figuring life out. You're still figuring out who you are. And sometimes you don't know how to heal. Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know what the problem is.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know what the problem is, because everything's been normalized to you. And then you're exposed to this whole new world when you're off to college. And that's an experience in itself. Mm-hmm. Like the college experience is what it is. Depending on what college or what university you go to, it's either going to be a good one, a bad one, an up and down one. It depends on what the experience is going to be like. But you're exposed to this whole new world of experiences with people from all walks of life, and you're kind of like a small fish in a big pond, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to navigate through things, through conversations, through even friendships and stuff like that. So it's tough. I do have a heart for the young people that are still trying to figure it out and stuff like that. But again, those young people are going to grow to be young adults who are going to be 25, 27 in the workforce, in office environments. And then they get caught up in office environment drama because of a coworker that wanted to play a pass on you, and you don't know what to do, what to say. It just gets crazy as you get older. if you don't figure it out somewhere along the way.
And it's tough. I mean, I didn't realize, or I didn't even think that I had daddy issues until I was in my 30s.
And which is okay.
That's when I started to realize, like, wait a minute. I see a pattern. I see what's going on here. I'm looking for my dad. I'm looking for my dad in men. And, or I like certain things about men because they remind me of my father. And I fought as a young girl. I remember being like 16, it was 15, 16 years old, and I would see fathers with their daughters and I would cry because I wanted my dad to love me the way those dads were loving their daughters. So I then grew up looking for that love. It was like a void. So I was looking for someone to love me, someone that was like my father, to love me in the ways that my father didn't. Because it literally is a void. And I didn't realize that until, I want to say recently, in the past couple of years, when I started to like acknowledge or like look back in my life, and I'm like, oh my God, this person, I didn't think he was anything like my dad, but he had little traits that were similar to my dad. And then I'm like, okay, well, I looked for this in him. I looked for that in this guy. I looked for this in this guy. So then I really started to realize, it wasn't until my last relationship, like he was the epitome of my father. So like, it wasn't until that relationship where I was like, oh God, this is my dad. He is like my boyfriend version. And like, my dad loved the guy. Like, they got along very well. Of course,
they're two peas in a pod.
Exactly. I'm like, of course they did, because they are identical.
Identical, So, like, if you don't mind, I mean, and you can share whatever it is that you are willing to share, but you did mention your last relationship. So do you want to kind of touch on that a little bit? How you guys met, how you kind of realize that this is not the guy for you, and how you navigated through it all.
I think I'll go through my 3 relationships. I had 3 relationships, 3 long term relationships, and I think the 3 were great relationships. I learned a lot from them, very tough, good life lessons from them. And my first 2 boyfriends were amazing. Like, they were there for me in ways. I always say my first boyfriend, he raised me, basically.
Because you were obviously younger.
He helped me in ways that my parents couldn't. Like, he helped tie ends where my parents couldn't help me. Like, because of him, I went to college. Today, I say, if that man needs a limb, I'll cut mine off and give it to him, because I owe him so much. I owe him basically where I am today is because he pushed me to be who I am today. My second boyfriend, he was very loving. He was romantic and just super loving. I think I got all the love and attention that I hadn't gotten as a kid from this man. And who could ever not have this sweet man in their life? Like, this is amazing. I wish every girl could have a Jose in their life. He was so sweet.
I actually do remember him.
He just the cheating. I was a kid. Like, there was just a lot of things that went on in that relationship that, unfortunately, he was a lot older. I was younger. I needed to grow up, and I guess he needed to do some growing up too. But I understood why he did the things he did when he did them, because I was young and sheltered. Like, my mom, I was 20 years old. I wasn't allowed to go on a vacation with my boyfriend.
So she was super protective.
Very protective. I recently, him and I had a conversation, and he was like, your mom is espantanovios, so she would scare my boyfriends away because, and today it's true, she's very controlling, and she controlled me. She manipulated me, which is another thing that I never realized. I never realized until after my 30s that my mom was manipulating me all of these years to be, my mom wanted me, I feel like I was my mom's doll. She wanted me to be who she wanted herself to be. So she did all of these things to me that I wasn't even realizing until, like, one day
she was kind of like grooming you to be this person,
to be who she wanted to be.
Because
like, she was living vicariously through me.
Wow.
But I didn't notice. I didn't know. I didn't think. I thought she was she's a phenomenal mom. I can't. I'll never take that away from her.
And it's crazy because that's probably a way that she thought was loving you.
Yes,
a way of loving you.
I will agree. Both of my parents, and I think all parents. They do the best they can with what they know
and what tools they have.
So that was what my mom knew. we'll talk about this later, but like school.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think going to school or having to go to college is what will get you out of scarcity, basically, or like will get you further in life.
Yeah.
I know people with high school degrees that are entrepreneurs and are doing better than I am. Like,
right.
You don't have to go to school to be better in
right.
life. That was their mentality back then.
That was an old school way of thinking.
That was their only way out.
Right.
They didn't have that. So they were doing the jobs that nobody else wanted to do because they weren't able to go to school, or they couldn't go to school, or they didn't go to school. So they pushed us to go to school because that was all they knew. With my third relationship, I finally realized that I had picked a man that was absolutely just like my father. In terms of, I sought protection. I wanted somebody strong. I wanted someone that was going to protect me and be like, I wanted to feel safe. And that he made me feel safe. Like, he made me feel safe, loved. He was everything. He did more than my dad ever did, but reminded me a lot of my father. Right. So
there was like characteristics.
Yeah, there's a lot of characteristics. Just even like, I'll think back at when I was growing up, the partying. My dad loved partying. Right. So it was, this guy loved the same things my dad liked. And so I just, when I saw this man, or I knew this guy for a very long time. I knew him since I was a kid, basically, since like high school age. And I just never thought that I would end up with him, because I knew the lifestyle that he lived, which was a very different lifestyle from what I wanted. Because silly me, I thought that I was going to be married young, or I was going to have kids before 30.
We always have a plan. We always have a list.
I had this plan. I had a list. I was checking everything off. So I was sure it was going to work out that way. And then, and I don't want to say like he was a horrible boyfriend, or he was a bad boyfriend. He wasn't. But there's just things that we both needed to work on. And in that relationship, unfortunately, it was violent. There was, he wanted to control me. And because that was one thing that I did learn from my family that I didn't want, was that they controlled me a lot. My mom controlled me like crazy. And I didn't want to be controlled. Right. So I fought against that. Like, there's no way a man's going to control me. And I didn't realize, I couldn't see it. I couldn't realize it when someone was controlling me, or it was just a boundary in a relationship that I couldn't surpass. Like, I would cross boundaries because I couldn't realize it. At any point where I thought that I had to report to you or let you know that I'm going to the gas station or something, like, that to me is controlling. Like,
and that's a bit extreme too.
Yeah, I'm making it extreme as an example. It's not really what happened, but
something similar probably.
Yeah, something small like that would bother me, because I didn't want to leave my house and have to report to my parents where it is that I'm going at all times of day. And I understand why sometimes it's necessary. I understand that it could be good. Like, it's not all control is horrible. Yeah. Just like it's not all bad is bad. There's a happy medium. Right. And I just, because I was so controlled at home, there's no way a man was ever going to control me. Yeah. I don't think that way anymore.
She's growing. She's maturing.
I'm learning.
She's learning. She's a work in process.
Yeah,
as all of us are.
That was a huge problem.
We don't have it all figured out. Yeah. I certainly don't have it all figured out. But we're all trying to be better versions of ourselves, because we don't want to stumble on the same rock. Yeah.
Over and over. So I think that with each relationship or each friendship, as time goes by, we pick things up in certain places. Right. And we realize what we like, what we don't like, what works for us, what doesn't work. And you realize things. Like, now I realize that not all things are I'm not being controlled all the time, because I think a certain way. Yeah.
And it's crazy how you're saying like you're learning. Because I think all of us are learning. Like, we learn as we go, as we live. I think the best university that you can graduate from is life.
So I call it that. I'm a student of life forever.
Forever. Yeah. Because you should never stop learning. Like, you should always leave room for growth. You should always leave room to learn. You should always leave room to just evolve, because I think it's an important thing to just evolve as a human being, like intellectually, even physically, emotionally, spiritually. I've been evolving on the spiritual side a lot. And not that I'm this crazy wacko Jesus freak. I'm nothing like that, but I'm definitely, if I'm going to be transparent, I've been more on the spiritual and faith side since COVID. I felt like COVID has definitely done away with me with just getting myself centered emotionally and also spiritually. Like I've been really being intentional with communicating with God. Like I don't need to go to a priest, or I don't need to have a rosary, and I don't need to go to confession to communicate with the Lord. I feel like that my relationship with God has become so much personal that I could literally just be in my room and feel away, and I'll just start praying as a form of meditation.
Yeah, it's like a conversation, just like we're having now, just that someone that you can't see.
Right, exactly. So I've been really intentional with that, and I've been reading but I'm not a Bible scholar by any stretch of the imagination, but I do have the app, and I do have a Bible, like a physical Bible, and I'll go and read some scriptures. My mom's Christian. She grew up in a Christian family, Baptist and Pentecostal, so they're very, flamboyant with their preaching and with their ways of doing things, and very charismatic on the Pentecostal side. So my mom's always like instilled that in us, but we were rebels. Me and my brother were always like kind of shushed that away. And as we grew up, we just was like, it just became white noise. Like we never sat into a church. We never went to a church. I think the only time growing up when we went to church is like Easter maybe. And if someone was getting married, that was like the only times we would go inside of a church. So I say all that to say that it's okay to try new things that may seem foreign to you. Yeah. Religion and having a relationship or a direct relationship with God or with Jesus was very foreign to me. You know what I mean? Because I really didn't indulge in that when I was growing up. The minute that me and my brother were old enough to go out, because we grew up in New York, the minute that we were able to go out and go to the park and play ball and get into trouble, like my mom was like literally praying every day. Like, I want my kids to like not go to prison, not get involved in drugs, not get involved with gangs. And we were around that. Like me and my brother were around drugs. We were around gang members or gang affiliated people. We were around people that were dealing drugs. We were around people that were getting shot at. And unfortunately, like it just, at that time, we didn't see it as a threat. We didn't see it as something that could possibly go wrong, because we were essentially the product of our environment. Like it just became normal. Like, oh, someone got shot. Okay. Or someone brought a knife to school. It just became like a normal thing. And like my mom, we would hide a lot of things from my mom. Like we wouldn't tell my mom like, oh, there was a bomb threat at the school and we were out in the football fields and sitting by the bleacher for an hour and a half until they were confiscating every single locker. Like we couldn't tell that to my mom, because my mom would like bug out and would want to move out of the state or something. So that was like the upbringing that I had. We were sort of sheltered, but boys outnumbered the girls in the household because my mom was the only girl. Except for one time when we had like a dog that was a girl, but that was like it. Like we outnumbered. There was a lot of testosterone in the household. My dad,
she needed some more estrogen.
Yeah, and then my dad really wasn't. He was the typical Catholic that identified as a Catholic but never practiced the religion. So we were just never involved in religion early on until I got closer to my faith as I got older. And it's crazy because you said as you got older you did this, that, and the third, and you started realizing this, that, and the third. With me, as I got older, I was realizing a lot of things about me. Like, my dad communicated with a lot of treble in his voice. He was a yeller, so I became a yeller growing up. And getting into relationships early on in high school and college, I was a yeller. Like I would yell.
Funny you say that. I'm a yeller.
Yeah,
but
and you learn that.
I definitely.
And I have to thank my dad.
Yeah,
I got to thank my father for that.
But I started learning early on because my dad yelled at my mom for everything.
Yeah.
Probably middle school, high school, and my dad would yell for simple stuff.
Right.
Like she would just say, "Oh, but this is open," and he's like, "Ah!" And I always used to think to myself, I don't want to be like him. I don't want to yell. And I realized when I get aggravated or agitated, that is my way of expressing myself.
It's almost like a way of communicating.
Yeah. And
any therapist will tell you that's not the way to communicate.
It's not.
My therapist would tell me that.
I think I learned a lot, and I learned how to tame it now that during law school.
Right.
Because I can't go to a judge with an attitude and talk like this. Right. I can't go to a judge and yell even if I'm trying to prove my point.
Right.
So I kind of was able to learn that even with my friendships, my relationships, even talking to my parents, sometimes I want to turn around and scream at my mom because she drives me freaking crazy.
Yeah.
But as I'm gonna say it, or as I'm saying it, or as I projected my voice a little higher, I realize it and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I even tell myself when I'm in front of a judge, like, hey, Stacey, don't shake your head, or don't get a little attitude, even if you think you're right, just calmly and professionally prove your point.
Yeah.
So I try to practice that now in my normal life, like outside of work, is you don't have to yell to express yourself or to get your point across. You can eloquently get your point across, and it can be that much more powerful if you're talking with a calm voice.
That is so true. That's so true. I could definitely relate to that because, like, early on when I was a teenager, late in my teens and early in my 20s, I sound old. Oh my gosh, like late in my 20s. We're old. We're washed. But anyway, so late in my 20s, I started realizing that, like, in my relationships, I realized, like, yo, I'm my father. And it's not until that in that young man's life where you're looking yourself in the mirror and you have that epiphany and you'd say to yourself, yo, I'm my dad. And it's a scary moment, but when you're young and you're in your 20s still, I believe that when men in their 20s are still a little immature. We don't start maturing until like late in our 20s, early in our 30s. We don't start maturing. And I think that's a choice too, because some men don't mature. I know 37, 38, 40-year-olds that still acting like 20-year-olds.
I do too.
You know, so it definitely is not an age thing. It's more of an experience thing, and then you have to make a choice.
I once again think that it's upbringing.
It's upbringing, but at the end of the day, you gotta
grow up at one point. You gotta realize that you have to let that go.
You have to let that go.
But a lot of people can't even let that go because they don't even realize that their upbringing is still affecting them at 40 years old.
Right.
Like I know someone, he never had his father in his life. He hasn't been a good dad to his kids, and he recently tried reaching out to his father, talking to his father, and I heard a conversation that they were having one day, and I was like, you know, that really is his problem. Yeah, he probably doesn't even know that he's been missing his dad his entire life. And now he's in his 40s, finally
trying to reconcile that.
Yeah,
which is never too late. I think it just takes more work.
Yeah, but I don't think he internally realizes why it is that he's reaching out to his father at this point. Why he's having these conversations with his father. It's because it was a void. There was a void in your life that you didn't realize for so many years that you were missing out. And had he maybe been in your life, maybe your life would have been a little different. Right. So, and like I said, he's in his 40s, and I'm 100% sure he hasn't even come to realization that he has daddy issues, or that he missed his dad, or that if his father would have been in his life would have been a little different. Yeah, and I recently saw this pastor, or a preacher, pastor, or whatever you guys want to call it, talk about how the importance of a father. How important is a father in the household? Because a father is the sole provider of the family. You know what I mean? Back in the day, right? So in that realm, the father was the provider. The father was the moral compass, and to kind of set boundaries and set your moral standards, and even if we're going to talk about faith, like even if it's faith-based, like the father was a spiritual leader. Like, hey, this is what we believe in, this is what we are going to do, this is our way of
worshiping our Father in heaven. This is the way a true man should conduct himself with integrity, with honor, with love and grace. And it made sense to me in a perfect world. In a perfect world, yes, a father should be the one that sets those morals, that sets those standards, that sets.
I didn't get any of those.
Those songs. And unfortunately, because we live in a society where America's a broken country when it comes to, I shouldn't say broken, a fatherless country. And because it's such a fatherless country, that's why we see so many men out there failing at everything and failing at life. And some of them end up in prison. And what happens is it's a vicious cycle like we were talking about. They end up in prison and they have babies. And now those babies are fatherless.
And they grow up
to
do the same thing.
They do the same thing, and their babies end up fatherless. So it's a generational curse, if you will. I hate terming it that way, but it truly is a vicious cycle and a generational curse that it's created from generations back. How do we change that? I believe, and this is just my opinion and my it's my male perspective or a men's perspective. I do believe that in order to really cut that and set a new tone is by what you said earlier. The men really got to step up, and I feel like it's hard and it's a challenge, but it's doable. Why do I say it's hard? Because in 2022, there's a lot of things that are demasculating men. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not against the LGBTQ community. I have family members who are gay in my family. So I love them very much I identify as a Christian. I understand that in the Bible it says that if you are gay, if you're a homosexual, if you identify as such, it's a sin. Guess what? I'm a sin too. My sin just looks different than their sin. So we could have a different conversation for another day when it comes to that, but we're all sinners. It's just that my cousin's sin is a
sin different.
Yes, we all sin different. So it's a sin issue at the end of the day, not a orientation issue. So the normalization of radicalizing gender appropriation, like I don't believe that it's okay to groom a 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11-year-old to, hey, if you feel like you are going to be a girl, let's talk about it. Maybe we can convert you to a girl. That is actually happening in 2022. That is happening. Look at Dwayne. I mean, shouts to Dwayne Wade. He's never going to see this episode. I would never even think. But Dwayne Wade is a prolific athlete who a lot of people, especially here in South Florida, know who Dwayne Wade is. Like he is the Jordan of Miami. Like he is a star athlete who has a family, and now he has this, I don't even know what to call it, son, daughter, that's transitioning, but they've been having these conversations since that kid was 9. And I believe that's, and listen, it's not my business to get involved in how they raise their kids, but I truly feel, and this goes back to the impressionable mind, like I truly feel that a kid at the end of the day should just be a kid. And just play, worry about nothing but playing, going to school, interacting with other kids, and not worrying about how you identify yourself.
But, so I don't have kids. I want to disclose that.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do if I had a kid that was going through that. I don't know how I would parent them. But my idea is there are some kids, and I know this from when I was growing up.
Yeah.
There are kids that know at a very young age what they like, and that who they are isn't what they like. I knew this girl since I met her in 6th grade. And in 6th grade, she knew that she didn't like girls, that she didn't like looking like a girl, and that she wanted to be a boy.
Right.
She dressed like a boy.
Right.
She
there was
acted like a boy, but it wasn't a phase.
Yeah.
She knew.
Right.
At that age, and she knew since she was little. And as adults, I had this conversation with her because to me it was a huge topic in high school. I always wanted to understand at what point, or how do you know that you like a girl, or how do you know that you liked a boy?
Yeah.
Like, what was it that, because I didn't understand that, because I liked boys. I looked at boys and I was like, I like boys. I looked at girls and I'm like, oh, she's cute, but I never wanted to be with a girl.
Yeah.
So I was very curious because I wanted to understand that. And my brother is gay, and my brother put it one day to me. He's like, you think I knew that I wanted somebody to put it up my ass? Like, I didn't know that.
Right.
I didn't, but a lot of them, not everyone, and a lot of people know at an age, even if they're 7, 8, 9 years old, that they don't want to be who they are, and they're having that identity issue. Yeah. And what I don't think is okay is if you want to be a boy and you are a girl and you want to be accepted as a boy and you want to act like a boy, you forcing a child to be a girl because that is what she was born. Yeah. That's how she was born. Right. You're causing trauma to that kid too. Yeah. So either way, you're causing trauma. You're causing trauma to a kid that wants to be a girl, that wants to be a boy, to be a girl, and that is not what she wants. Yeah. And regardless, just let the kid be a kid, whether he or she wants to be a he or a she. Yeah. Like, I don't think that we as parents, and I get it, some parents, I think we're a little different now with age. Things have come different. Like my mom, my dad to date will not accept my brother. Right. But it takes some learning. And back in the day, it was not acceptable. Like, my grandma for sure was like, hell no, there was no gay kid coming to my house. Right. One of my kids could not be gay. Yeah, they're going to beat the gay out of them. Yeah, that's definitely a cultural thing, especially in the Latino community. Definitely a cultural thing. So and you couldn't change it. Yeah. But now I think that we are transitioning, or we're more evolved. Yeah. And we're able to accept our child regardless of their the gender role that they want to play, or what how they want to identify, or what sex they're into. Yeah. I find it. I had this conversation with a friend the other day, and she had a very hard time saying, well, I don't want my teacher telling my kid that he can be a unicorn if he wants to be a unicorn. He can't be a unicorn. You were born a boy, you're a boy. I think there's definitely a responsibility that the adults in the room need to take. And a lot of the adults that are in these rooms, and I say rooms, but in these spaces, especially if you're a parent, like, why are you having a gender application conversation with a 6-year-old? That's just my pushback. And you can call me old-fashioned, you could call me this, you can call me that, but again, I'm not against the community. You are who you are. You made your choice. You made your choice based on how you felt, how you identified, how you felt emotionally as you were transitioning into that lifestyle. Because again, at the end of the day, being gay and being a homosexual, to my understanding, I can be wrong, and forgive me for my ignorance, but to my understanding, it's not a fad. It's not a phase. It's not a trend. It's a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. You made your choice, as everybody makes their choices in life, and you made a choice to live yours as such. And I totally respect that. More power to you. You know, the lifestyle comes with pros and cons, just like how my lifestyle comes with pros and cons, because we're all humans. We're a human race. We are going to go through peaks and valleys. We are going to go through challenges. We are going to go through traumas in our lives. It's just going to look a little different for all of us, because we all come from different upbringings, different walks of life. My only hang up with it is that I say that I have a son because I'm essentially raising my kid, and you know exactly my situation. And a lot I've been very transparent on the show that my brother's in prison, and I'm essentially helping raise a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. Me personally, I look at Connor, and I don't see myself engaging in those types of conversations. Why? Because when I'm around Connor, I'm very intentional with who he is and who I am in the room. He knows that I am the male authority. He knows that I am a man.
Why? Because how I lead my life. He knows that when we have conversations, boys go to the boys' room when they go to the bathroom. Girls go to the girls' room when they go to the bathroom.
Those are learned. We learn those things.
We learn those things. Absolutely.
Just like we learn that there's a male and there's a female.
Yes.
There is a boy and there's a girl.
Biologically, we would have to understand that you're a boy because that your genetic makeup makes you.
But I actually don't think that all kids understand that.
No, I understand. I understand they don't understand.
I've had little girls ask, "Do I have a penis?"
But that's what that's where response. That's the whole notion. Like, it's our responsibility to instill these morals and these things to our children, because what I'm seeing with the Dwayne Wade family, and other families too, not just Dwayne Wade's family, but people who are not famous, like my next door neighbor. Like, you can't allow a 4, a 5, and a 6-year-old tell you how to raise them because of what they are exposed to on their TVs, in school, what they hear on social media. We live in unfortunately, because it's a good and a bad thing, it's a double-edged sword. The social media era that we're living in, a lot of young children are exposed to a lot of things. Lil Nas X, for example. And I'm just using that as an example. But, like, when I grew up, gangster music was very prevalent. Mm-hmm. My parents thought that if I listened to that music, I was going to become a gangster and join a gang and be a heathen. You know what I'm saying? So what my parents did is they said, hey, listen, you can, as I grew older, like, hey, you can listen to all this stuff, but just know that that's not the life that we want for you. Mm-hmm. So we had these conversations. I believe that when you are a parent and you're seeing all these things, and your moral compass is what your moral compass is, if you're a person of faith and you're a Christian family and you believe in what the Bible says, be a responsible adult and teach them the way. You know what I'm saying? And essentially, when they grow up to be old enough to make adult decisions, if they want to have that conversation with you, then it's both of your responsibilities. The responsibility when you're young completely has to lay upon the adult. The adult in the room has the authority, has the way to just express what it is that you need to express to your child. And then if the child grows up to be a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old person and says, hey, Mom, I understand that you taught me that boys are boys because of the genetic makeup, or whatever the conversation was had, and girls are girls and boys like girls and girls like guys and yada, yada, yada. But Mom and Dad, I want to have this conversation now because this is how I feel. I feel that is more healthy than allowing your 8-year-old to be like, okay, son, so let's go see about maybe getting, because now the hormones are now readily available.
I just don't think that all 8-year-olds know.
Right.
But there are
I'm so against injecting a 9, 10-year-old with hormones.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's okay.
And that's happening. That is happening, guys.
But then again,
in the United States of America,
that's up to the parent.
I understand
There's no government that can tell a parent this isn't what you should do.
Right. But morally, it's like, I don't know. I don't have an example, but like morally, like a child shouldn't be like, and I'm going to go to the vaccine. And any vaccine. I'm not even talking about COVID.
It's your child.
Yeah.
Not someone else's child.
And I'm not talking about COVID or it's just any vaccine.
Vaccinations
in general, bro. Like, I don't feel like that should be something that, especially the vaccinations that are out now with this modern age, scientific thing going on, that everybody needs to get vaccinated because my immune system is different than yours, and whatever background you're from and whatever age you're at, like that should be that shouldn't be.
No, there's certain things like polio.
Yeah.
That is something that you should be vaccinated
right.
for. And a kid doesn't have a choice to get polio and become quadriplegic or whatever it is that
but I'm talking about like the vaccinations
they didn't
out
get
now.
Vaccinated with polio,
like the flu shot and all these other.
Again, I think that goes to parenting. I never had the flu shot. I've never had the flu shot.
Me neither.
And I've never had the flu. Thank God.
Had the flu. So
knock on wood. There's no wood, but I'm gonna knock on it.
Yeah, and I mean, we can go around in so many different variables. Like, oh well, the hormone thing. It's your child. You could do whatever you want with your child. I get all that, but is it right? Like, in what state of mind does it make it? Like,
I think it's right for the parent that the child already knows. Yeah. And I get that it's very different, and it's very different for each parent. They're very different for each kid. There is a kid that will realize it when he's 16, maybe 13, when he's going through puberty.
Right.
And didn't realize it when he was 8 because he thought he was a boy. Like, he just started realizing as he started to hit puberty. Right. But there's other kids that know immediately. Like, as soon as they have reason of thought. Right. And again, there's just some kids that they start walking at 8 months. Like, there's ones that start walking after 1. Yeah. So they're just every kid is different. So what I think the schools really were trying to do was create that inclusion and allow you to be open, because even when I was growing up, being gay wasn't okay. Like, being gay and being in
we're
school,
old enough.
Guys wanted to experience beat up the kid because he was gay. Yeah. So what I think the schools were trying to do, they just went a little too far with it, was including that. And it is okay for you to be gay in school. Right. It's okay if you're not allowed to be gay at home. You can be gay here. Yeah. It's okay. So you like boys, it's okay.
And this is great that we're having this conversation, because it gets uncomfortable. And I'm all for getting comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations. So this is great, because I had this conversation with a buddy of mine about masculinity. Like, is it in 2022 and what's going on with schools and big companies and Disney and all these other different places that are being inclusive with that community? And again, I don't have anything against that community, because I have family members who identify in that community. Is it, though, demasculating men, heterosexual men? Is heterosexual men a dying breed because of this movement that's been, and we had this conversation, and it was very uncomfortable, but also at the same time it was very needed, because it's like, now a man. And he used this as an example. He was like, yo, man can't do manly things now in this PC culture, like in this, politically correctness culture. Like, we can't do manly things, because now it's like, oh, he's barbaric. He's chauvinistic.
What manly thing?
Well, for example, being a leader in the home. That's a very manly thing. But people on the other side would say, oh, he's not allowing the woman to be an independent thinker, and that's not necessarily the case. We're like, men should definitely be a leader in the house, because the man has a voice that needs to be heard. Because
I'm very independent, and I'm looking for a leader.
So you know what I'm saying? And like, and it goes back to the previous conversation that we just had about America being a fatherless country. Fathers matter. You know what I'm saying? Fathers do matter. So where do we draw the line where men now have to walk on eggshells because we don't want to misappropriate things, and we don't want to hurt other people's feelings, and we don't want to stir the pot, if you will, because we're being men? You know what I'm saying?
I don't necessarily. I think it's just the way the man takes it, because I don't think you're hurting anybody's feelings, or you have to walk on eggshells because you're being a man. Right. That's not going to make a difference to someone else that is a man but is gay. That doesn't make a difference.
So in 2022, what makes a man for you? Let's just go right there. Let's just go right in the jugular for you. In 2022, for Stacey, just for Stacey, you don't have to speak for every woman, but for you, what makes a man in 2022?
Like, an ideal man for me, or just like a man in general?
A man in general. And then we could talk about it for you, but right now, a man in general, what makes a man today, in your personal opinion?
I've never really thought of that. What makes a man? I think a man is a man.
Yeah.
A man has a penis. He's a man.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't think that there are characteristics that define a man as a man. I really don't think that there is something that a man can do to make him more manly or more of a man. I don't even think that, for example, like I said, I'm looking for someone that can lead just because he is a leader.
Right.
That makes him more manly. I don't think so.
Right.
I think
that makes him an honorable man. Yeah. A man with integrity, a man with character.
But I don't think it makes him more manly.
More manly.
Like maybe when I was younger, I thought what made a man more manly was like he's big and strong and has like a strong voice and like a strong persona. Oh, that was a man. But here where I sit now, I don't think that anymore. I don't think that the stronger you are or the deeper your voice is, that makes you more of a man.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think that there's characteristics that make a man more of a man.
Right.
I think that a man is a man, gay or not gay, or like any type of man, whether you're feminine or not feminine, makes you more of a man or less of a man.
Yeah.
I generally think that everyone, that a man that is a man is a man, regardless of his sexual orientation or what he likes or how he acts or whether he gets his eyebrows done or doesn't get his eyebrows done, whether he cleans up and shaves and gets his beard dyed. I don't think that makes you less manly or more manly.
Okay, perfect. That was a great answer. And if you ask, and that's why I like to have these series of talks, because next week I'm going to have another young lady who's a peer of mine have these similar conversations. Because I feel like if us as men line up a half dozen or a dozen different women and ask them that question, you're going to get 12 different answers. And I think
perspective.
Exactly. Took the words right out of my mouth. So I think it is a lot perspective, but I think baseline, a man should own up to his shit.
I think we should look up the definition of a man in a dictionary.
and not the Urban Dictionary. But,
it's not the Urban Dictionary.
But like I me as a man, I don't consider myself more manly than the next guy. My only adversary is me. I'm my own competition. I want to be the Javi that you see today. A year from now should be a better version of Javi. That's just how I view things and how I feel about evolving, growing, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, and intellectually. I think that a man should definitely baseline, like the basics, should value a woman, should value himself, and if you have spiritual and faith values, should definitely love your creator, your maker, your God. My God is Jesus. So I value those things. I value the fact that my Heavenly Father sees me as a child of God, that reconciled me through Christ Jesus, who loves me no matter what, who is faithful even through my unfaithfulness. He still is faithful in my life, that he still loves me through my shortcomings, through my mess ups and my hang ups. Like, that's the Father that I serve in heaven. And so I try to be a fraction of that with the people around me. I try to love on everybody the way I should love people. I try to value women and not see them as pieces of meat. I most definitely would like to lead by example as well. I think all those are not complex things. We tend to complex those things, but those are baseline things. Like, a man should definitely value the woman. A man should definitely validate the woman, make her feel accepted, validated, and loved. But
a woman should do the same for the man.
Absolutely, because what happens is, if you have those values and you try to implement that in wherever circles that you run, that typically 9 times out of 10 will reciprocate back to you. Whatever you put out, you get back. You know what I'm saying? In the Bible, it says, whatever you reap, whatever you sow, you reap. So what is it that you're sowing into? What is it you're sowing into? And I challenge those men. What are you sowing into? Are you sowing into selfishness and being a boss and not caring about other people and not valuing people? Because then it's going to come back to you, and you're going to reap that what you're sowing. You're going to have people around you that are not going to respect you, that are going to see you as who you are, that's not going to value you, and they're going to use you because if you're a so-called boss and you're making money, they're going to use you for your money. They're not really going to value you and love you for who you are because you're not doing that on your end. So it is something that, biblically, it is something that does make sense. That is true, that you whatever you sow in, you're going to reap.
I say that we're mirrors.
Absolutely.
We're a mirror of who we are and what we want. Like, even the people that come into our life are a mirror of who we are, because it is essentially what we're seeking when you're like, who you are is who you look for.
Mm-hmm.
So you and the person or the people that are around you are a mirror of you.
Yeah, because my therapist would say, and he would use that. He would kind of word it differently, but essentially is what you just said. He would tell me, you know what I tell single people, and I'm like, what? And he's like, I always, because he also, my therapist specializes in relationship therapy as well. That's what he essentially specializes in. And he told me, because he was telling me, hey, so how's your relational life? Are you dating? Are you early on? And he would say, you know what I tell single men? And I'm like, what? I would tell them, would you date you? And a lot of men would look at me and they would not have an answer because internally they know the answer is no. But they don't want to accept that. They don't want to vocalize that, especially to a therapist, because they know that the therapist is going to kind of figure it out. But it's such a deep question with a simple answer. Like, if you're going to keep it 100 with yourself, if you're going to keep it real with yourself, if you're a true to yourself, because the worst thing that you could ever do as a man, guys, as a man, the worst thing that you can, because I can lie to you all day. Mm-hmm. I can even lie to God all day. Yeah. I can lie to my parents.
Lie to yourself.
But the worst thing that you can do is lie to yourself. And lying to yourself is not accepting the fact that you wouldn't date you. Mm-hmm. Because if you know deep down inside, in the fiber of your being, know that the answer is no, but you are lying to yourself and saying, nah.
It's egotistic.
Exactly. So if you know without a shadow of a doubt that answer is no, I will not date myself, then that's where you got to start. Mm-hmm. Us as men got to start there. We got to start saying, you know what? I want to become the person that I would love to date. Mm-hmm. And my therapist would say, I would say, I would guarantee that once you get there and you become the person you want to date, the next relationship, guaranteed, or your money back, is going to be your forever relationship. But so many men get it wrong. We get it wrong. And I'm in a place where I'm single again, and it's not by choice, which is fine. But I'm kind of like, okay, it's time to go back to the drawing board. Mm-hmm. I'm more intentional with my faith. I'm more intentional with praying. I'm more intentional with meditating. I'm more intentional with being around like-minded men. Because you guys got to be around like-minded men. Because if you're hanging around with the narcissist, and you're hanging out with the partier, and you're hanging out with the guy that doesn't give an F about anybody else but yourself, you're going to essentially be that guy. But if you're around dudes that hold you accountable, that is going to be vulnerable around you, that's going to be transparent and tell you like, hey, and have those uncomfortable conversations like, hey, that's not how you navigate through life. That's not how you treat women. That's not how you talk or convey that message to the opposite sex. Like, all those things matter. So like, when you become the person that you would want to date, and I think I'm there. I think I'm in that place where I want to become that, because I'm not perfect. No one is, and I don't claim
we never will be.
Yeah, and I don't claim to be this guy that has it all figured out, that I'm this trophy of a guy for the female race. Like, I have to figure some stuff out myself. I got some things I got to figure out. I got some things that I got to work out. I gotta just evolve at the end of the day. And I think if all us men get to that place where we want to be better, we want to evolve, we we want to, just be human beings at the end of the day, not savages, because there's some savages out there.
It's essentially healing.
That's what it is.
Looking internally and like literally working on yourself and healing before you get into this next relationship. And learning what is it that I have or that I'm doing that I need to work on before I enter the next relationship. It's never going to be perfect. And every relationship is different. Every person you encounter is different. You'll have a different set of problems with the next person. But it's learning essential things about yourself. Like a lot of times you'll see the same issues come up in relationships, or you're looking for the same type of person and you're getting the same outcome. Then you can start to see what is it about yourself, or find what it is about yourself that is making you get into these relationships and have these troubles. And it's really, I really think it's about ourselves when we have these problems in our relationships. And we have to, instead of pointing the finger, like this person did this and this person is messed up because they did this. Why did that happen? Like, what did I do to invite that into my life? And that's where you start to realize, okay, well, this is what I did. And you start, like, it's a self-analysis. You start learning things about yourself and seeing things about yourself that otherwise you don't realize. Because a lot of times we don't see things. Like, a lot of times I didn't realize that I was mad or yelling, or I was also controlling. I didn't think I was controlling because I thought I was the coolest girlfriend ever. Like, you can do whatever you want. It's cool with me. We just have to communicate. But maybe I wasn't communicating well, and I wasn't. Like, my delivery was always incorrect. My delivery it was just wrong, the way I spoke. And so now I realize it. I'm like, man, I could have said this way, or I should have done this way. And once you start working on those things within yourself, then your relationship starts to change.
Now, do you feel that as a woman, do you feel that you're better equipped healing while you're single rather than healing with getting involved with another person and then heal? Or should you do it through a season of your singleness?
So it's kind of a difficult question for me because I feel like I've never really been single. And even when I did, or we ended a relationship, my last relationship, we're still involved. So I never really experienced that singleness. But I think that you can work on yourself and heal even when you're in a relationship. But it's difficult when you realize that what you're healing from is what that person isn't good for you. Like, he no longer aligns with what I'm looking for. Like, 23-year-old me isn't the same person I am today. So I wouldn't have chosen the same boyfriend. Because now I've experienced things and I've learned things, and I'm trying to heal and I'm trying to build and I'm trying to grow, that I see things differently now than a 23-year-old.
And the reason why I ask is because I see it all the time. And again, social media, I see it all the time. Like, I feel like, without mentioning any, I would never drop names here when it comes to these touchy subjects, but I would see a certain female break up with their last relationship, and then they feel that jumping into the next one a couple months later is healing. And I personally, I don't think that's healing, because you're never giving yourself a chance to really have that assessment that you were talking about, like really have a self-evaluation, a self-assessment as to what it is that you need to do to become the person you want to date. Because I truly do feel that when you're not fully healed and then you're going to jump on another relationship, that's kind of setting yourself up for failure, because you're not healed. You're jumping on a relationship hoping that it'll fix you, but you're bringing all your junk with you that you haven't sorted out, and you're plopping it over to that poor guy, and he has no idea what you've been through, what you're dealing with, the healing or the lack thereof. And poor guy, he's going to jump into a buzzsaw.
But also, poor girl, she doesn't realize that she's not healed, and she doesn't realize what's wrong with her.
But what happened, like, okay, so that's like my thing too. Like, there has to be somewhere in the female psyche where a light turns on and says, you know what, man, I got to stop jumping from relationship to relationship. When I don't know, like, when is it that moment? Is it a moment of like heartbreak? Is it a moment of just going through it? Is it where is that moment for that female?
I think it's a little deeper than that, though.
Yeah.
I think that it's the jumping from relationship to relationship. There's a void.
Yeah.
And there's a void. She is seeking something.
Right. So how do you have that epiphany? Like, how do you realize the time, right?
Yeah, just time.
And you got to do the work too.
Some people have that epiphany a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Other people, like, some people have 2 relationships, the same shit, and they're like, okay, I see a pattern here.
Yeah.
Let me figure out what's going on. Some people hit 5 relationships back to back, and they're having the same problems, and still don't realize that they are the issue, or that they are bringing a similar issue.
I think that's a little bit of ego, though. Isn't that ego, though, when they just refuse not to realize that it's always the guy, not them?
It could be, but I also think that it's a deeper issue. It's an issue you don't.
It might be a daddy issue.
Yeah, or mommy issue.
Oh, mommy issue, yeah.
I think it's rooted deeply into when we're young. I think a lot of our issues, even as adults or growing up, come from way back. You have to unpack a lot in order to heal and learn about yourself.
Right.
And a lot of it comes from our childhood traumas that we don't even realize are traumas.
Yeah.
And it just comes with time. Like, I wish I would have realized after my second relationship what was wrong with me. But I didn't think anything was wrong with me. I thought I was the greatest girlfriend ever.
That's why I always...
And no one ever told me I was a bad girlfriend.
Like, that's why I'm so, like, pro seeking therapy, or even support groups. Now there's support groups now. Like, you could literally go online. There's support groups that you can go into. Like, you could do it remotely. You don't even have to be in the same room. Like, there's, online support groups that you could get into. Good friends. Keep good friends around you that will pray for you, that will be good for you, that will tell you things that you don't want to hear because you don't want to be around yes men and yes women.
Yes.
So good friends and support groups if you can.
Constructive criticism.
Yeah, therapy. I mean, I always therapy. If you're able to get therapy, get the therapy that you need, because we need it. We need it because we can't figure it out on our own.
We need other perspectives. A lot of times our friends are very similar to ourselves.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I am the United Nations when it comes to that.
Yeah.
I have friends from all different sorts
me
and with
too.
different feelings, and they just everyone's different.
Yeah, me too.
So I don't necessarily have very similar friends with similar thinking and similar backgrounds, or even the way we were raised. I think I have a good...
Me and you were definitely raised different.
Yeah.
I don't come from a broken home, but my father was violent at times, and he was a yeller, like we covered earlier. But I love the conversations that you and I have. Every time you and I link up and we have like deep conversations, like I learn something, and I have insight on things, and I have a female's perspective on a lot of topics that I have in my brain. Like, I kind of want to pick at your brain because some females I just don't get. You know what I'm saying? You guys are very complicated at times. Definitely females are more emotional than men. That's just the estrogen versus the testosterone that's in us. So it's like we try to understand and come to a level of understanding when it comes to the way that we think, because men think blue and women think pink, just to putting it in.
I think very pink.
Yeah, so just putting in layman's terms, like, that's just what it is. But I definitely encourage people who are listening to this conversation that, that they see that, we all don't have it all together. But it's okay not to be okay. Yes. It's just what you do with those things, like how you handle your situations, how you handle your emotions. I'm a very emotional guy. Sometimes I don't handle it very well. I'm learning through past experiences that I can't just always lead with emotions, because it's going to blow up in my face and I'm going to hurt people around me. And essentially I would get hurt because I would realize that I've hurt people, and that will make me feel kind of crappy, So it's just, you always have to be willing to learn, swallow your pride, check the ego at the door, And just be transparent, be vulnerable, be open to your friends and to your therapist. If you do decide to go to therapy, be open with that person. Just don't sit there and go through the motions. Be intentional with your therapist. Allow your therapist to pull layers, unpack, because a lot of things that we do have to unpack.
Yes, a lot of our issues root from our childhood.
Yeah,
we just don't realize it. My brother had been telling me for years, you need therapy. You should go to therapy. I'm like, I need therapy? I'm perfectly fine. Why do I need therapy? And it wasn't until...
You're so oblivious. It's crazy.
Yes, it wasn't until a year ago I found myself in a very dark place. The relationship I had held on to with the death grip had literally come to an end.
Yeah.
And I was broken in every way, shape, or form. And I'm like, I'm in my 30s. I'm successful. I have my own place. I have a great job. Why am I in this situation?
Yeah, because you find yourself picking up the pieces by yourself.
I didn't have anybody. When I tried talking to people, no one close to me was in the situation or had been in the situation.
Or could even understand what you were going through.
Yeah, and then when I did talk to certain friends or I did disclose it to certain people, their feelings for what I was going through was so different than what I was feeling that I was like, I'm very confused. And I tried talking to my mom. My mom and I my mom had been me at one point. Yeah. But my mom was just so aggressive with it that I'm like, you're not a good person to talk to. My brother's like, of course she's not. She stayed in their marriage. She's still married to the same man.
Right.
So I sought therapy, and I saw one therapist first, and she was great when it came to psychological issues and applying science to what I was going through. But at the moment, I was so emotional that I felt like I needed someone to understand me at a deeper level,
at an emotional level,
other than just opening a science book and saying, this is what you have.
Wow.
So I met another therapist, which I really thought that my first therapist was super sweet. I liked her. I even recommended her to a friend. But then I met my second therapist, and I was like, oh yes, I love talking to her. And again, sometimes our friends aren't even equipped to hear or to
understand,
listen to the things that we have to say. Sometimes I even ask very close friends that I talk to every day, hey, are you in a good place today? Because I'm about to vent, or I need to vent. Can you accept this today? Sometimes we're not. Sometimes I'm not available for someone to vent to me, and it's not that I don't want to hear you. I don't want to be there for you. Just that I'm not emotionally available
because it's a lot.
Take on your problems, because today I'm having a lot.
Because sometimes it becomes your burden.
Right. And I take on a lot. I'm an empath, and I feel very hard for my friends. Yeah. And I have these desires and these likes that then I become very involved. So a lot of times I just am emotionally not available for those things.
Which is okay.
And I realize that for my friends too. Sometimes you're not emotionally available. And I've been doing it recently to she just had a baby, and I've been dumping all these things at her, and I'm like, wait a minute, Stacey, she just had a baby. She's going through so much. I'm like, her emotions, her hormones. Stacey, what are you doing? But now she's like, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, I'm okay. But I'm like, nah. But these are things that are better for me to speak to with my therapist, because one, she's going to give me better advice
and insight.
Insight, but it's also someone that
doesn't know you.
Exactly. So,
which is great, because they'll give you a bias.
An unbiased
take on things.
Yes, and that is really what we need, and it's really what we get out of therapy. So I still have a lot of friends that tell me, I'll never try therapy. Why do I have to go tell a stranger my problems? Don't do it. If you're not comfortable, don't do it. But I didn't think that I needed therapy. I didn't think that telling a stranger my problems would help me. Yeah. And it's helped me tremendously.
And we're here to encourage you, if that's you, and if it's speaking to you, and you've been entertaining the idea of seeing a therapist, this is your sign. Go see a therapist. But this was great. Thank you for coming.
I had a great time. Thank you so much.
But we're not done. So this is what I did on my last guest with Vanessa. Shouts to Vanessa. So I do a poll. Okay. And it's you either pick one or the other. You can't pick both. You can't say both. Okay. All right. So it's a couple of questions. Mm-hmm. So let me go to my thing, and it's real easy. It's simple. Like, I'm just going to say two things and you're going to pick one or the other. All right? And it's random stuff. Mm-hmm. All right? And again, the trick is you can't say both.
Okay.
All right. And this is very Colombian. Okay. So this is why this is my first one, because it's very Colombian, being that you and I are Colombian. Arepas o buñuelos?
Arepas all day.
Okay. All right. J Balvin or Maluma?
J Balvin.
Nice. Okay. Here's the other one. Movie night or bowling night?
Ooh. That one's a good one. I'll go with bowling just because it's different.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Hiking or camping?
Hiking.
Beach or a pool?
Beach.
I know. Me and you are beach people. Okay. A couple more. Dancing or athletics?
Dancing.
Okay. Airbnbs or hotels?
Airbnbs.
Okay. Miami or Los Angeles?
So I've never been to Los Angeles, so I'm going to say Los Angeles.
Hey. Okay. And then we're going to go through the superhero stuff. Batman or Robin?
Batman.
Okay. Captain America or the Incredible Hulk?
Captain America.
Okay. We got a couple more. Oh my God, it disappeared. No, here we go. Bachata or salsa?
Salsa.
Hey! And I know why, but we're not going to go there. All right.
No, I've been salsera since I was a kid.
Okay, here we go. Chocolate or candy?
Chocolate.
All day. And the last couple. Okay, here we go. J-Lo or Becky G?
I'm going to go with Becky G.
Becky G. Okay, here we go. And here's another G. Carol G or Cardi B?
Oh, come on. I'm going to be chota all day, Carol G.
I knew you were going to say that. All right, and this is the last question, and then you have to give me the why. So you're going to give me why you chose the answer. And I say it to so far I said it to everyone at the end of the poll. Loyalty or respect, and why?
Ooh.
And I promise it's not a trick question. There's no right answer.
There is no right answer, and it's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
And then we're going to end with that one.
Oh.
It's always like a stumper. It stumps everybody.
So I think respect just comes naturally. So I'm going to say loyalty. And loyalty is because you intentionally have to be loyal to someone. I think respect is not earned. It's something that you give everyone regardless of who they are, where they are, and who you are. But loyalty is something that is very difficult for everyone. And it's something you intentionally give.
Wow. Oh, that was a good answer. I like that one. I think Vanessa chose loyalty too, I think. Or respect. I forget. No, she chose respect. And she had a good answer. But again, it's just perspective. Like, people would choose respect over loyalty, and that's awesome. But we're going to end it. That was like an hour and some change. I hope that you guys enjoyed the talks that we had, that it inspired you, that it equipped you, empowered you, encouraged you, all the above. I just hope that these conversations definitely give you some insight, a different perspective, and we encourage you to have these conversations with the circles around you, because I believe that dialogue is very powerful. We need to have more of these conversations. We can't just leave it up to chance. That's how you would grow. That's how you would build your relationships and friendships that you're currently in. Dialogue is definitely a needed thing. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. If you're new to the show, you can subscribe to all digital platforms. We do have the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and if you want to view these beautiful faces, you can tune in on YouTube, and I'll leave all the description information and link information on the description below. Until next time, guys, thank you. Peace. Bye.